What's good and welcome back to the Green Domain. This is Rondez and today we're reviewing the Arcane Domain Cleric. This is from recently released Unearthed Arcana, where the Arcane Domain Cleric was joined by subclasses for the Monk, the Fighter, the Wizard, and the Warlock. And we're going to talk more about that on the Rune Docs channel, where I'm joined by Archmagus Azim and Oathbreaker Carrie. But today we're just going to talk about the Arcane Cleric. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to review the updates to the Cleric, and we can't talk about the updates to the Cleric without talking also about the old Arcana Domain Cleric. So some of the big changes that you'll notice is that Arcane Domain Spells have been revised. On the next slide, we're going to look at those exact spells. Arcane Initiate now gives the Cleric the expertise in the Arcana skill. Modify Magic is a brand new feature, replacing the old Arcane Abjuration, which we'll talk about later on in the video. The first portion of the video is going to be talking about the new subclass. The last portion of the video is going to be a quick review of where things were at in, 2015, when the Unearthed Arcana for the Arcana Domain originally came out. Dispelling Recovery is a new ability. It was formerly named Spellbreaker. It now uses Dispel Magic and also triggers when you remove a condition from a creature. This is one of the big changes to the class that we'll talk about shortly. Arcane Mastery now lets you change the wizard spells you choose. And wow, did Arcane Mastery get a huge boost this time around. Let's get right into it. So, these are the new prepared spells for the Arcana Domain Cleric. Take a quick look. We'll also very briefly review what the old spells were, and you can kind of see just how big of a change it is. Some things will stick around, like Magic Missile, Detect Magic, but we're seeing some new additions, like Counterspell. We see Dispel Magic, we see Leomund's Secret Chest, Bigby's Hand, Teleportation Circle. Out of all of these, Arcane Eye is probably the weakest. It's something that is very situational, and most of the purposes of that spell is usually covered by something like Find Familiar, Locate Object, Divination, but it's still a cool thing to have there nonetheless. These are your spells that are always prepared, and they do not count against the number of spells you have prepared for the day. So, this is something that is consistent with the other domains that we see for Cleric in 5th edition for Dungeons & Dragons. We're blending conviction with arcane power, they say. These are the old Arcana Domain spells. So again, these are from the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide in 2015. As you can see, Detect Magic and Magic Missile are still there. Magic Weapon and Nistel's Magic Aura, they're just level shifted. In the current edition of Dungeons & Dragons, the Cleric selects their domain at level 3. Whereas previously you selected it at level 1. So that's going to be the big difference here. Counterspell is a huge addition. We're no longer seeing Magic Circle in our prepared spells. Level 7, Arcane Eye, Leomund's Secret Chest. This is the same as it was before. Cleric level 9, we have Bigby's Hand and Teleportation Circle. At level 9, for the old Arcana Domain Cleric, we had Planar Binding and Teleportation Circle. I kind of like Teleportation Circle. I think it's interesting to give Cleric different kinds of movement and mobility type spells, and they cut that one out, and that's fine, because that's not really what the class is about, what the subclass is about, at least. Next up, we have level 3. So at level 3, as we mentioned at the top of the video, the Cleric of the Arcana Domain gets Arcane Initiate. They get the following benefits: Arcane Knowledge and Cantrips. So you get proficiency in the Arcana skill if you don't have it already. That makes sense. You also get expertise in the Arcana skill. Makes sense that you should have expertise in your own domain. 2 cantrips. You're going to get 2 wizard cantrips of your choice. Whenever you gain a cleric level, you can replace one of these cantrips with another wizard cantrip. So the wizard spell list has a massive assortment of spells, but spells that are especially important and useful to the cleric class. When you're combining arcane and divine magic, you're really covering all your bases. So some of the cantrips that I would suggest, depending on your campaign, depending on your playstyle, depending on your backstory, some of the cantrips for the wizard that I suggest that stand out to me and give the cleric greater utility and viability and range are Shocking Grasp. You're able to stop opportunity attacks with that. Chill Touch. You can stop your enemies from healing and do some damage as a melee spell attack. Ray of Frost. Increasing your support kind of role with slowing your enemies and stopping them from moving around the battlefield. The Cleric, though, not usually known for great single target damage, or at least it's not the greatest use of their abilities. We have Minor Illusion. This is something that you could use if you want to have some kind of greater impact out of game, right? When you're doing role play, when you're maybe trying to get one over on someone. And finally, True Strike. This is another great spell for combat. But if you're not too tied into combat, Minor Illusion is a great look. Message is a great look to be able to discreetly speak to your companions. Now, the second part of this is Modify Magic. And Modify Magic gives you two different ways to use your Channel Divinity. It expands your use of your Channel Divinity. You get these charges, and you can change the spell in one of the following ways. No action required when you channel your divinity and change the spell. The first of which is Fortifying Spell. One target of the spell gains a number of temporary hit points equal to 2d8 plus your cleric level. So this just empowers your healing. Just remember, though, that temporary hit points do not stack, and that's probably a good thing because there are a ton of ways to get temporary hit points in 2024's edition of 5th edition for Dungeons & Dragons. The second thing is what I want to talk about the most, and that's Tenacious Spell. This is another huge way to expand your single target spells, to expand your spells that make people take saving throws, because when you cast a spell that forces a creature to make a saving throw, you choose one target of the spell you can see. You'll roll 1d6 and apply the number rolled as a penalty to the target's saving throw. So, for Tenacious Spell, think about spells like Hold Person, Sunbeam, Bane. You're able to pick that one target and say F you in particular, right? So, really, really big expansion of the Cleric's power in that you can just make sure one person gets hit by this spell or try to advance that a bit. Next up, we have level 6 abilities, and it's just one. It's Dispelling Recovery, and this is pretty sweet too. Here's why. Immediately after you cast a spell with a spell slot that restores hit points to a creature or ends a condition on a creature, you can cast Dispel Magic on the creature as a bonus action without expending a spell slot. Wow. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your Wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So, the reason that this is so powerful is because it empowers these spells that you're already going to be using anyway for one reason or another. Think Healing Word, Calm Emotions if you need to stop something from raging or being otherwise charmed. Greater/lesser Restoration, Remove Curse, and Freedom of Movement are all empowered in new ways. You can heal a creature, maybe a companion that's also under the effect of some other spell, and you dispel them all in one turn. So it's just greater use of the action economy. This is also something that could be useful outside of combat. Maybe if you're interacting with an NPC that needs help lifting a curse from them and has multiple ailments hurting them. This is very, very flavorful for a cleric, I think. So excellent level 6 feature. Now we're going to move on to level 17. And wow, this is a huge jump in power for the cleric, because you learn 4 wizard spells, one from each of levels 6, 7, 8, and 9. You thereafter have those spells prepared. Whenever you gain a cleric level, you can replace one of those spells with another wizard spell of the same level. So at this point in the game, when you get to level 17, you are massively powerful. Basically God level, not really, because gods are, of course, going to have like way higher ACs and challenge ratings and so on as NPCs, but you are just like, especially the wizard, you're able to pretty much do whatever you want. Reality, things like gravity are all just suggestions to you, minor inconveniences. So let's take a look at some of the spells at level 6 that might be most useful. These are the ones that stand out to me at least. Chain Lightning, Mass Suggestion, Globe of Invulnerability, Disintegrate. That's just level 6. You get to pick one of those at level 6. Level 7, I would recommend something like Draconic Transformation. You'll get a Flight Speed, Dragon Breath, Simulacrum. Maybe you need to send a clone in. Clone is also a spell that you get from the wizard spell list if you want to choose that as your one spell. Now we look at level 8. Again, this is all entirely dependent on your campaign. At this level, maybe you're not so worried about combat because you already have a wizard in your party who's able to deal massive amounts of damage. Maybe you're not a combat-heavy campaign and you want to grab something to set up your bastion and protect your bastion. So you have spells like Mighty Fortress, Illusory Dragon, summon a dragon into combat with you. You have Control Weather. That's just level 8. Now at level 9 is where it gets nuts. And it, I think, works so well with the divine spells that the cleric already has in their spell list. Invulnerability is an option at this point. Blade of Disaster is an option as well. So stacking that on top of like spiritual weapon or something, you're able to attack 3 times in a turn for a pretty decent amount of damage, because spiritual weapon comes in as a bonus action attack rather than your, your main action. So that's the Arcana Domain Cleric as we know it today. Here's where it used to be. Level 2 as a cleric in the old edition, the old material for the Arcana Domain. This is from the Sword Coast Adventures guide. At level 2, you got Arcane Abjuration. You had this like banishment ability. You were able to stop people from doing things outside of a dash action. Very, very limited banishment spell. I don't find myself using that all that often. I play the cleric class the most when I play this game. And this was kind of underwhelming to me, just because, I mean, if you're at 8th level, you can only banish a creature of a CR level of 1 or lower. And that's just kind of underwhelming. You might as well just use another spell or support one of your other companions and party members in dealing damage. Just one round it, right? One round that creature. So a bit strange there, but I think WotC was kind of on the same page with how weak this was. Next up, you had Spellbreaker at level 6. Whenever you restore hit points to an ally with a spell of 1st level or higher, you can also end one spell of your choice on that creature. The level of spell you end must be equal to or lower than the level of spell slot you use to cast the healing spell. So what's much stronger is being able to just straight up use Dispel Magic. I think that is much cooler. I think that the way that this is worded as well is one spell of your choice. So like you would have to know the spell that your target is under in order to remove it. At least that's how I would rule it as a DM with the way that it used to be written. Kind of weak, kind of underwhelming. The way that this works now is awesome. And it's not just when you heal them. It's also when you remove a condition. So again, if you're removing Charm or Frighten or Blindness or something, then you also remove everything else that's ailing that creature. Now we have at level 8, Potent Spellcasting. This is just built into the base Cleric class today. That's the big difference there. And finally, level 17, Arcane Mastery. Just as we saw it before, they're always prepared and they count as Cleric spells for you. The new one today doesn't say that last part. They count as Cleric spells for you just because that's just a given and it's just mentioned in the base class, in the base rules. If you get a spell, it's recognized as a spell for your class. So that's the Arcana Domain. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, drop a subscription if you want to see more. Head over to the Runedocs channel. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, posting all kinds of content from reviews to also skits and live shows where we also play Dungeons & Dragons together on Twitch, Baldur's Gate 3, so on and so forth. I'll see you next time. Thank you.